I'm watching something happen right now that I never thought I'd see in my lifetime. Million-dollar yachts, the kind that wealthy people wait years to buy, the kind that represent the pinnacle of luxury and success, they're being sold for half price. And I'm not talking about damaged boats or desperate fire sales from bankrupt dealers. I'm talking about pristine vessels, barely used, sitting in exclusive marinas, owned by people who were celebrating these purchases just months ago. They're slashing prices by 30, 40, 50%, and they still can't find buyers. This isn't a rumor. This isn't speculation. This is happening right now, and the implications are staggering. Because when the luxury yacht market collapses, when people who can afford anything suddenly can't give their boats away, it tells you something profound about what's happening in the broader economy, in consumer psychology, and in the future of an entire industry. By the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly why this is happening, who it's affecting, and what it means for anyone who's ever dreamed of owning a yacht, or anyone who currently owns one and is watching their net worth evaporate. But more than that, you're going to see the warning signs that everyone missed, the dominoes that fell one by one, and the single critical factor that nobody's talking about that explains why this crash is different from anything we've seen before. I need you to understand something before we go any further. What I'm about to tell you isn't just about boats. It's about wealth, about status symbols, about the illusions we buy into, and what happens when those illusions shatter. The yacht market has always been a mirror of extreme wealth, a reflection of the top 1%'s confidence and spending power. When that market is strong, it signals economic optimism among the ultra-wealthy. When that market crashes, when people who have money to burn suddenly won't touch yachts with a 10-foot pole, it's a canary in the coal mine. And right now, that canary isn't just struggling. It's dead on the floor of the cage, and nobody's paying attention because they're too busy looking at stock markets and real estate and all the traditional indicators. But I'm paying attention. I've been tracking this for months. Talking to yacht brokers who are panicking, dealers who are sitting on inventory they can't move, owners who are hemorrhaging money and can't find a way out. And the picture that's emerging, it's both fascinating and terrifying, because the forces driving this collapse, they're not going away, they're accelerating. And the people caught in the middle, the ones who bought at the peak, who believed the dream, who thought a yacht was a safe store of value or at least a stable luxury asset, they're learning a very expensive lesson about what happens when markets built on aspiration and ego crash into reality. Let me paint you a picture of what's actually happening out there. I'm talking about 60-foot cruisers that sold for $1.2 million just 18 months ago, now listed at $600,000 with no offers. 80-foot motor yachts that were $2.5 million, now marked down to 1.3 and still sitting. Custom builds that cost $4 million to construct being offered at $2 million, and brokers are telling owners they're still priced too high. These aren't theoretical numbers. These are real listings, real boats, real people watching half their investment disappear and feeling helpless to stop it. And here's what makes it even more brutal. These aren't distressed sales in the traditional sense. These aren't repos or estate liquidations or boats that have been neglected. These are boats that were bought new or nearly new during the boom. They've been maintained immaculately. They're loaded with upgrades, premium electronics, custom interiors, everything you could want. On paper, they should be holding their value reasonably well. Instead, they're losing 50 cents on the dollar, and the slide isn't stopping. Walk into any high-end marina right now and you'll feel it. There's a heaviness in the air, a tension. The owners who are there, the ones who haven't fled yet, they're not talking about their next cruise or showing off their latest upgrades. They're whispering about valuations, about market conditions, about exit strategies. The brokers, usually so smooth and confident, they look stressed. They're working phones constantly, trying to generate interest, trying to find buyers who simply don't exist. And the boats themselves, these magnificent vessels that represent the pinnacle of marine engineering and luxury craftsmanship, they're just sitting there, unused, depreciating, becoming more difficult to sell with every passing week. Because in the luxury market, staleness is death. A boat that's been listed for 6 months isn't seen as an opportunity. It's seen as a problem. Buyers wonder what's wrong with it, why nobody else wanted it, what hidden issues are lurking. So what's driving this? What happened to turn the luxury yacht market from a seller's paradise into a buyer's wasteland, assuming you can even find buyers? The surface explanations are easy. Interest rates went up, making financing expensive. The economy softened, making luxury purchases less appealing. The pandemic boom ended, and all those impulse buyers are now impulse sellers. But those explanations, while partially true, they miss the deeper story. Because luxury yacht buyers aren't usually financing their purchases. Interest rates don't matter when you're paying cash. Economic softness doesn't matter when you have wealth that insulates you from recessions. These are people who can afford discretionary purchases in good times and bad. So why have they stopped buying? Why are even ultra-wealthy individuals looking at 50% off yachts and walking away? The answer is more complex and more revealing than anyone wants to admit. Let's start with something that's been building for years, but accelerated dramatically recently. The cost of ownership has exploded, not just normal inflation, but exponential increases in every aspect of yacht ownership. Marina fees have doubled or tripled in premium locations. Insurance rates have skyrocketed as insurers have gotten burned by claims and have massively repriced risk. Crew costs for yachts large enough to need crew have gone through the roof as labor markets tightened and qualified crew became harder to find. Maintenance and repair costs have surged because parts are more expensive, skilled labor is more expensive, and everything takes longer. Fuel costs, while variable, have been significantly higher on average. And regulatory compliance costs, environmental regulations, safety requirements, documentation fees, they keep increasing. What this means is that a yacht that might have cost $200,000 a year to operate 5 years ago now costs $400,000 or more. And that's assuming you're using it moderately. If you're actually cruising, actually taking advantage of what the yacht offers, the costs multiply. Now you might think, so what? People who can afford million-dollar yachts can afford $400,000 a year in operating costs. And technically you're right. But here's what changed. The value proposition collapsed. During the boom years, yacht ownership felt worth it. The costs were high, sure, but the experience, the status, the lifestyle, it justified the expense. Marinas were social hubs. Yacht clubs were thriving. There was a whole culture around yachting, a community you were buying into. The boats held their value reasonably well. So even though you were spending money on operation, your asset wasn't depreciating dramatically. You could convince yourself it was a reasonable use of capital. But now, that equation has flipped. The costs are higher than ever. The social aspect has diminished as fewer people are actively yachting. The community is fracturing as people sell and don't replace their boats. The resale values have collapsed, so you're not just paying operational costs. You're watching your asset lose value every month. And the experience itself, the actual use of the yacht, it's not what it used to be. Popular cruising destinations are more crowded, more regulated, more expensive. The freedom that yachting promised is constrained by rules, fees, reservation systems. The escape that yachting offered is harder to find because everywhere you go, there are more boats, more people, more constraints. So wealthy individuals are doing the math. They're looking at their yacht, calculating what it's costing them all in, considering the depreciation, and they're realizing it's one of the worst financial decisions they've ever made. Not because they can't afford it, but because the return on investment, even in experiential terms, isn't there anymore. They're spending $1 million a year, counting purchase price depreciation and operational costs for maybe 4 weeks of actual use, and those 4 weeks aren't as enjoyable as they used to be. That's a terrible value proposition, even for the ultra-wealthy. And once that realization hits, once the math becomes undeniable, the decision is obvious. Sell, get out, redeploy that capital somewhere that makes more sense. Maybe it's real estate, maybe it's art, maybe it's experiences that don't come with year-round carrying costs. But it's not the yacht. And here's where it gets really interesting. When one wealthy person makes that decision, it doesn't create a market problem. When 10 wealthy people make that decision, it's notable but manageable. But when hundreds, thousands of wealthy yacht owners simultaneously decide to exit, when they all try to sell at the same time, you get what we're seeing now. A glut. A complete mismatch of supply and demand. Because for every yacht that hits the market, there need to be buyers. And the buyers, the next generation of yacht owners, they're not stepping up. Younger, wealthy individuals, the ones who would traditionally be buying their first yacht in their 40s or 50s, they're not interested. They've watched their parents or mentors or peers struggle with yacht ownership. They've seen the costs, the headaches, the declining value proposition. And they're choosing differently. They're chartering when they want a yacht experience. They're joining yacht clubs that offer access to a fleet without ownership. They're investing in other status symbols that don't come with the same burden. The cultural shift around yacht ownership is profound. It used to be a clear marker of success, something to aspire to. Now, among many wealthy circles, it's seen as a foolish indulgence, a money pit, something that savvy wealthy people avoid. That perception shift is devastating for the market because luxury goods are entirely dependent on perception and desirability. When the target demographic no longer desires the product, price becomes irrelevant. You can offer 50% off, 70% off. It doesn't matter if people fundamentally don't want what you're selling. And right now, that's where we are with luxury yachts. The market isn't just soft. The market has lost its fundamental appeal to the next generation of buyers. Let me tell you about the economic ripple effects of this collapse, because they're significant. The yacht industry is massive. Builders, suppliers, marinas, service providers, crew, brokers, insurance companies, thousands of businesses and tens of thousands of jobs are tied to this industry. When the luxury end of the market collapses, it doesn't just affect yacht owners, it cascades through the entire ecosystem. Yacht builders are cancelling production runs, laying off workers, restructuring. Suppliers who provide specialized components are seeing orders dry up. Marinas that cater to large yachts are seeing slips go empty, and they can't just replace an 80-foot yacht with 4 smaller boats. The infrastructure doesn't work that way. Service yards that specialize in large yacht maintenance and repair are slow. Crew who made good livings working on private yachts are scrambling to find positions on charter vessels or leaving the industry entirely. Brokers who earned healthy commissions are struggling as deals fall through and inventory stagnates. And here's what nobody's talking about, but everyone in the industry knows. The collapse of the luxury end accelerates the decline of the entire boat market because the luxury segment sets the tone. It's where the innovation happens, where the premium brands establish their reputation, where the aspirational marketing originates. When that segment is failing, it affects buyer psychology all the way down the market. If million-dollar yachts can't find buyers at half price, why would someone feel confident buying a $300,000 cruiser? If the wealthy are fleeing yacht ownership, what does that say about the viability of the lifestyle for everyone else? The psychological impact of the luxury market collapse is affecting the entire industry, creating doubt and hesitation even among buyers who could afford boats and might have purchased in different market conditions. Now let's talk about the owners who are stuck, because their situation is genuinely difficult. These are people who bought yachts for anywhere from $1 to $5 million, thinking they were making a sound decision. Maybe not a financial investment in the traditional sense, but a lifestyle investment that would retain reasonable value. They did their research, bought quality boats from reputable builders, maintained them properly. They did everything right. And now they're watching those boats lose half their value in 18 months, and there's nothing they can do about it. They have several options, none of them good. They can hold on, continue paying the massive operational costs, and hope the market recovers. But hope isn't a strategy, and the carrying costs are crushing. A yacht, that costs $400,000 a year to own and operate is costing them $33,000 a month just to sit at the dock if they're not using it. That's real money bleeding out every month. And for most people, even wealthy people, that's not sustainable long term. They can try to sell at market price, which means accepting a massive loss, taking a boat they paid $2 million for and selling it for $1 million or less. That's psychologically devastating, even if you can afford the loss. It feels like failure, like you got conned, like you made a terrible decision. And there's ego involved. These are successful people who pride themselves on making smart decisions. Admitting they massively overpaid for a rapidly depreciating asset, that's hard to swallow. Or they can hold out, keep the price high, and wait for a buyer who might never come. Some owners are choosing this route, convincing themselves that their boat is different, that it's worth more, that the right buyer will come along and pay what it's worth. But every month that passes, the boat becomes less marketable, the costs pile up, and the eventual selling price drops further. It's a losing strategy, but it's the one that lets them avoid confronting reality a little bit longer. The emotional toll on these owners is real. I've talked to people who are genuinely distressed. These were trophy purchases, symbols of their success, sources of pride and joy. Now they're sources of stress and regret. The boats that were supposed to provide escape and relaxation are providing anxiety and financial pain. Some owners have stopped going to their boats altogether because it's too depressing. They can't enjoy them knowing how much they're losing, how much it's costing, how trapped they are. Others are throwing good money after bad, investing in upgrades and improvements, trying to make their boats more marketable. But it rarely works because the problem isn't the boat. The problem is the market. And the lenders are in an interesting position. Some of these luxury yachts are financed, even among wealthy buyers. Maybe they financed it to preserve liquidity, maybe for tax reasons, whatever. But now the loan balance exceeds the market value of the boat. They're underwater, sometimes dramatically so. And the lenders are getting nervous. They're seeing collateral that was worth $2 million when they made the loan now worth $1 million or less. If the borrower defaults, if they can't make payments or choose to walk away, the lender is stuck with a boat they'll have to sell at a loss. Some lenders are working with borrowers, restructuring loans, extending terms, trying to avoid taking possession. But others are tightening up, calling loans, forcing sales. And that's adding more inventory to an already glutted market, which is driving prices down further. It's a vicious cycle that feeds on itself. Let me tell you about the psychological factor that nobody's discussing but is absolutely central to what's happening. Yacht ownership at the luxury level has always been about more than the boat. It's about identity, about belonging to an exclusive club, about signaling success and status. But status symbols only work when they're desired and respected. When they become objects of pity or symbols of poor decision-making, they lose their power. And that's what's happening now. Owning a luxury yacht isn't impressive anymore in many wealthy circles. It's seen as ostentatious, wasteful, impractical. The conversation has shifted from "look what I can afford" to "look how smart I am with my money." And yacht ownership doesn't fit that narrative. Younger wealthy individuals especially, they're more conscious about how they're perceived. They want to be seen as successful but also smart, sophisticated, aware. Conspicuous consumption is out. Strategic wealth deployment is in. And yachts are the definition of conspicuous consumption without strategic value. This cultural shift is generational and it's not reversing. The baby boomers who bought yachts as status symbols are aging out. They're selling or will be selling soon. And the millennials and Gen X wealthy individuals who should be replacing them as buyers, they're not interested. They charter when they want yacht experiences. They invest in sustainable businesses. They collect experiences rather than things. They're not buying yachts, and they're not going to start just because prices drop. The fundamental desire isn't there. And without that desire, without that cultural cachet that yacht ownership used to carry, the market has no foundation. It's built on sand, and the tide is washing it away. Here's what's going to happen next, and this is the part that should concern everyone in the marine industry. The luxury yacht market collapse is going to continue. Prices are going to keep dropping. More owners are going to capitulate and sell at huge losses. Inventory is going to remain high. And eventually, the pain is going to be so severe that it forces a restructuring of the entire industry. Builders are going to go out of business. Not the small boutique builders, they'll survive serving niche markets. But the large production builders who ramped up capacity during the boom, who built factories and hired thousands of workers to meet demand that evaporated, they're going to struggle. Some will restructure, some will be acquired, some will simply close. The marina industry is going to consolidate. High-end marinas that depend on large yachts and wealthy owners are going to see revenues collapse. Some will convert to different uses. Some will lower their standards and accept smaller boats. Some will go bankrupt. The brokerage industry is going to shrink dramatically. There are too many brokers chasing too few deals. Commission-based businesses don't work when nothing's selling. A lot of brokers are going to leave the industry, find other work, retire early. The ones who survive will be the ones with diversified income streams, maybe property, maybe charter management, something beyond just selling boats. And the ripple effects will hit coastal economies that depend on yacht-related spending. Towns that cater to yacht owners, service businesses that maintain and supply yachts, restaurants and shops that benefit from yacht traffic, they're all going to feel the impact. It's not going to be dramatic or sudden. It's going to be a slow grinding decline as spending decreases, businesses close, jobs disappear. But it's coming, and it's unavoidable at this point. Now you might be wondering, is there any opportunity in this collapse? If yachts are selling for 50% off, isn't that a buying opportunity? And the answer is complicated. For the right buyer, in the right circumstances maybe. If you've always wanted a luxury yacht, if you have the capital to buy cash, if you can afford the operational costs without stress, if you plan to use it extensively and value the experience highly, then yes, you can get an incredible deal right now. Boats that would have been unattainable 2 years ago are now within reach. You can buy a vessel that someone spent $3 million building for $1.5 million. That's real. But, and this is critical, you have to go in with eyes open. You have to understand that what you're buying is likely going to continue depreciating. You might buy it for $1.5 million, and in 2 years, it's worth $1 million. You have to be okay with that. You have to buy it for the use and enjoyment, not as any kind of investment or value store. You have to be prepared for the ongoing costs, which are substantial and not decreasing. And you have to accept that you're buying into a dying market, a declining lifestyle, a community that's shrinking. For most people, even most wealthy people, that's not an attractive proposition, which is why the boats are sitting, which is why prices keep dropping, which is why we're in this situation. The deals are there, but the desire isn't. And without desire, without demand, prices become irrelevant. You can offer a yacht for free, and if nobody wants the operational costs and lifestyle commitment that comes with it, you still won't find a taker. That's the reality of where we are. The luxury yacht market isn't just down, it's fundamentally broken. The assumptions that undergirded it, the cultural cachet, the lifestyle appeal, the value proposition, they've all eroded. And without those foundations, the market can't function. Prices will find some floor eventually, probably well below current levels. There will always be some people who want yachts badly enough to buy them, despite the economics. But the market as we knew it, the robust luxury yacht market that drove billions in sales and supported a massive industry, that market is gone. It's not coming back, not in its previous form. Maybe something new emerges, some new model of yacht ownership or access that makes sense in the current environment. Maybe fractional ownership becomes more common. Maybe subscription models take hold. Maybe charter becomes so prevalent that ownership becomes rare. But the traditional model of wealthy individuals buying yachts as status symbols and lifestyle investments, that model is dead. We're watching its death throes right now, watching million-dollar yachts get marked down to half price and still not sell. Watching an entire industry grapple with a collapse that nobody saw coming because everyone was too invested in the dream to see the reality. This is the truth they don't want you to know. This is what's really happening while the marketing still shows beautiful people on beautiful boats living beautiful lives. The reality is desperate sellers, collapsing values, and a market that's fundamentally broken. Now you know.